My brain is history.
Psychosis.
Hello, folks. Thank you for tuning in. We are the Willamette Young Adult Leadership Council. This is our first episode to our podcast, Speaking of Voices. And we are very excited that you are here and listening. We've got a couple great people here. We'll introduce ourselves now. My name is Carrie, and I have a history of psychosis with a diagnosis of schizophrenia.
My name is Karis, and I have attenuative psychosis.
My name's Terrell, and I've experienced psychosis.
My name is Sammy, and I have severe psychosis and severe depression.
So we're doing this podcast for a couple of different reasons. Now, for me, the biggest reason is it's so important for good information about psychosis to be available to people, because that's going to eventually, that's going to help people who are experiencing psychosis and psychosis-related disorders. And good quality information can be very difficult to come by.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Online, there's a lot of misinformation and just misunderstandings that may not be intentional, but a lot of it is fed by pop culture and the media, and so it just kind of perpetuates this very strange culture of people who have the wrong information, meaning well, but doing unintentional harm.
Yeah, I think it's important in the age of AI to just make sure it's coming from real people, some real experience, and not just generated by GPT.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a good point. Yeah, I feel like the internet is kind of the worst place imaginable to get information about psychosis. I know when I was first starting to have experiences, I went to the internet and was like, what's going on with me? How do I heal from this? And all of the information was just like, well, actually, you're never going to get better, and everything's going to be horrible, so you should just give up now. And I was like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not true. Psychosis can be helped with professionals and support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like it has actually gotten a lot better in like the last 10 years as groups like us have been doing a lot of work in advocacy and education.
Yeah, we come together as people with the lived experience who know that it can get better, who know how it can get better, who know what it's like, and our goal is to help others like ourselves.
In essence, we want to educate people about psychosis. We want to advocate for people who are experiencing psychosis and psychosis-related illnesses, and include the voices of lived experience in the narrative around psychosis. And we are voices of lived experience.
Indeed we are.
Indeed we are.
Indubitably.
So what is psychosis?
Psychosis is a mental health experience, and it includes multiple diagnoses. The experience of hallucinations, delusions, and illusions is the basic grounds for what someone might call psychosis.
Hallucinations are visual, auditory, olfactory, tactile, and taste experiences that are not perceptible by other people. They are with you. It is your own experience.
There's taste? I didn't know that was a
Oh,
hallucination.
yeah. Some weird ones are like smelling and tasting stuff. Like I used to start smelling hairspray everywhere, even in the woods, randomly. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Not the most upsetting, but still kind of strange.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got like a taste experience. I was like drinking grape juice, and all of a sudden it just tasted like blood. Like it straight up tasted like blood. And at the time, because I was experiencing some really distressing things, I thought it was blood, and that there was some mystical, magical force trying to either send me a message or kill me. It was very upsetting.
Yes. It's always some sort of a dark mystery that comes with it.
Do you know what type of blood it was?
No. So that's a really good example of another part of psychosis, which is delusions. Delusions are strongly held personal beliefs that are not shared by any other people religious beliefs or common cultural beliefs are not delusions. I had a delusion for quite a while that there was a ghost lady living in the cupboard in the room next to me, and that she was incredibly angry at me. And I did a lot of things to try to protect myself around that, but it was a really scary and very disturbing experience, particularly like the things around blood and such.
I had and still have problems around mirrors because of certain media making jokes about that, and I started believing it. And I still have trouble around mirrors because who knows, maybe in my mind at least, there may be a thing in there waiting for you to look away long enough so they can grab you. And I just tend to make stuff up and then believe it.
Yeah, they can be pretty dramatic, and like you said, they can be fed by outside sources and movies and things like that. The delusions that many people with psychosis symptoms experience have to do with other people as well, and like social situations and the hours after dark as well. I have some experience with the hours after dark.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people actually, is that once the sun goes down, your symptoms tend to get a lot worse. That's certainly true for me.
And me.
Yeah, that also brings us to, similar to delusions, illusions, which are visual distortions like walls moving, shrinking, changing colors. Illusions happen a lot for me more in the darkness because I think it's easier for your eye to trick you when the sun's down.
What's an example of an illusion that you experience, if you don't mind sharing?
In the dark, I will often see faces in windows that weren't curtained and blinds. If the blinds weren't closed, I would see something outside always. It was always like smoky and kind of had a strange face. So that was something.
Interesting, yeah. I get a lot of like visual distortions and illusions, kind of like classic walls moving, walls shrinking, the walls changing colors. And for a long time, I just kind of thought that was something wrong with my eyes, and then came to find out, no, that is not a normal experience.
Yeah, I've never had any visual delusions.
Neither have I that I am aware of.
So the symptoms of psychosis are separated into negative and positive symptoms. Negative symptoms mean something that is removed. It doesn't mean something that's bad, just something is removed from a person's experience or functioning. And positive does not mean something that is good, it means something that is added. Positive symptoms include what we've spoken about: hallucinations, delusions, illusions, and paranoia.
And that's what people talk about the most, but it's also important that we talk about the negative. The isolations, the social withdrawal, the flat affect, and functional decline. Those can be oftentimes some of the first signs that you're about to experience psychosis or symptoms worsening. I remember I became very isolated. I did not want to socialize. I became extremely fearful of people, of going to places where people gather, and stopped showering, taking care of myself. I think I sounded a bit like a robot with the flat affect, as when you don't really sound lively in your conversation, and it's hard to be engaged with somebody.
People do talk all about like the positive symptoms, especially in movies and stuff. You know, whatever supervillain is having symptoms of psychosis, of course. But the negative symptoms really are the ones that get you really bad. I mean, we know that strong social supports are the number one predictor for a positive outcome for someone who's experiencing psychosis. So when you're having these negative symptoms, isolating yourself, and you're withdrawing socially, and maybe you're having a hard time with your self-care and your hygiene, those can make a lot of problems for people, particularly with their recovery. Even like causing additional problems like dental issues, having a bunch of cavities or infections that need to be taken care of.
And those things often feed into the positive symptoms as well. And they kind of bounce off of each other and make each other worse. I remember, like, not showering, I started becoming very, very convinced that I was going to get some kind of an infection on my skin. Like, I had a scab, and I was convinced I was going to get, what's it called? When the scab...
Staph?
Yeah, I was convinced that was going to happen. It didn't, luckily, but, you know, that kind of a delusion was fed by the negative symptoms. So the negative symptom of poor hygiene impacted the positive symptom of delusions.
Yeah. I feel like we've touched a couple of times on it, but a lot of the reason that we're doing this podcast is to fight against stigma.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stigma around psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I mentioned a moment ago, supervillains in movies frequently are portrayed as having psychosis. And a lot of people are very afraid when they learn that you have a diagnosis, a scary diagnosis, you know?
Yeah, I think it's also just reinforced by, like, people's experience and the media, because it's usually almost always the worst case scenarios that will get talked about.
Yeah, and you're not going to hear about somebody, like, making it through a program and feeling better and getting a new job. You're going to hear about somebody who had a really bad episode and caused, like, property damage. That's what's going to make the headlines, unfortunately.
And I don't think people realize how harmful it is. It's incredibly harmful. Like, stigma kills people because it creates a narrative around your experience. It creates a narrative about you that you internalize. I struggled a lot when I got diagnosed with first psychosis and then schizophrenia, with feeling like, oh my God, am I a bad person because of this? I'm so scared I'm gonna hurt somebody because of this. And that is all stigma, because the reality is people with psychosis are far more likely to be victims of a crime than to be perpetrators of a crime.
Prime example is they find that a lot of young girls who are manipulated into very dangerous situations, they often have symptoms of psychosis, and those are taken advantage of. Like, their abusers will feed into their delusions and make them a lot worse so they can further control them. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's a very vulnerable state, you know, being in psychosis. It's very scary. It's not scary because the person is scary, but the world that you're experiencing it can be very frightening.
Indeed.
And I think, you know, what we really need is for the general public to have a better understanding of psychosis, as well as a lot more empathy and knowledge so that they can help.
Yeah.
And ease some of that suffering that people are going through, particularly in those first chunk of years when psychosis is new and they don't know how to cope and they don't have established care routines.
And we're here to help you establish the care routines you need and learn what help you can get and what you can do. Even alone, but also we'll talk about what to do with others and how to build your support systems and all that good stuff.
And there are lots of programs and resources available for people to learn about what they're experiencing and to find great coping skills. And there's going to be even more as we continue this podcast.
Yay!
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time.